professional software developer looking to take your skills to the next level? Maybe new to the field and looking to get everything you need to know? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Dev Coaches Podcast.
Welcome to the Dev Coaches Podcast. We're at DogFoodCon recording live, and we're here with Trey Mayer, who happens to be one of the organizers, and we're glad to have him sitting down with us. And Trey, we're going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about what you do.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So my name is, as you said, Trey Mayer. I work for a consulting firm out of Columbus, Ohio. I actually live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm part of the steering committee for Codapalooza in Louisville. I've been involved in dog food now for about 4 years, but I've been on the steering committee for 3 and joined Codapalooza 2 years ago. Day-to-day work, I'm a dev. I'm also a people person. I also sometimes get forced into sales and making those guys happy. But for me, the biggest part I love about what I do every day and getting up and what gets me up is that community and helping people and giving back. That was a huge proponent and an acceleration in my life as well. I found a community. I found it, and it pushes you further and further every day. So.
Excellent. How important do you think community is for developers? I mean, you know, we train junior developers and we tell them to get involved, but how important do you really think it is across the span of your career?
Yeah, I think it's invaluable. Yeah, I really the importance of it is one from a technical side, right? Is you're learning and you're hearing things that are sometimes tech agnostic, but it's problems that we all have, regardless of what language, what framework, or what you're doing. And then the other side of it is the community and the psychological and the day-to-day life, right? You look at the imposter syndromes, you look at the fight that we all have of, do I like my job, do I like my career? And you don't know until you come to these communities that, hey, a lot of us all struggle with the same thing, a lot of us all have the same questions, a lot of us still are fighting, and it gives you a chance to sit down and not worry about competition. It gives us to sit down and worry about, like, you know, somebody trying to pick off a client. It's a time for, you know, to get together. And
Absolutely.
for me, it is awesome to have that and sit down and not worry about who pays my check every week, but having a hobby and a community is just, again, I think it's invaluable to people.
Yeah, it helps to be engaged with people, to become productive in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how do you help people in that way?
Yeah, I think, you know, we say it all the time is, you know, is being able to listen is probably better than being able to talk, right? Because I have this happen with me is I'll sit down and talk to somebody, and as I'm listening or they're listening to me, something clicks for me, and then that next thing goes to, oh, I've had this problem before, or I've talked to somebody else that was similar. You know, here's how we talk about it, and it's, I think, too, about being open and a bit inclusive about the same thing, because it is where we're at today in modern technologies. It is a bit of a newer industry or a newer change of problems that we're looking at, problems that we're trying to solve, where we never had that before, right? There was no other standard. It's kind of morphing. You see, you know, in startups and enterprise and everywhere else. So I think having that idea of just sitting, talking, listening, regardless of the skill level, regardless of the tech stack, or, you know, I'm a Windows person or I'm an Apple person, who cares, right? At the end of the day, we all want to make really cool stuff, and we want to, you know, ultimately be efficient and have a great life.
People struggle with that a lot. I struggle with that a lot, in the sense that I had over time to learn to actually listen, because there were so many conversations I'm involved in where I actually wasn't listening. Right. I was just waiting for my turn to talk,
right,
which made me think about the things I wanted to say.
Right.
And actually, while I'm thinking of those things, completely ignoring everything the other person is talking about.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, it really is, and I do too, and I can't say that. I think naturally, just we do it as humans.
Yeah.
Like that's the.
Well, it's hard to do both things at the same time sometimes.
Exactly.
Like, you kind of have to pick.
Yep, and then a lot of our minds are going 100 miles a minute anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And you're already thinking of like that. And I have that. I've had that problem in the past too, with even as a solution architect. You know, I'm going through a problem. We're talking through a problem with a client, and then I'm already thinking about the technology.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, and instead of looking back, like, you know, really trying to comprehend and understand. And that I think has helped me professionally and with my wife, and you know, with my parents, or, you know, other people that I run into.
Absolutely. I think one of the things, you know, we train people wanting to be junior developers. One of the things I recommend to them every time I teach a group is when you start your first job, don't go in there with a set of headphones and isolate yourself. Sit there, do your work, and listen to all the conversation going on around you. You will learn so much about the product you're working on, the processes of the company, everything. Everything is going to help you become a successful developer in that company by just sitting there and listening to what's happening around you.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I see that too. A lot of people have, they start on even right out of college, and they're taught they're probably incredible developers, but a lot of them miss that side of it. And and same way here, it took years before we realized that's just as important in this industry, in this community,
in every industry.
Well, true.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And having that personal connection and being able to listen and give back, and that's one thing I tell young junior and people that are even change career is in here. You have to be okay with failing and learning to fail. That's a couple things I say is like learn to fail, learn to learn, and learn to listen. And those are the big things that for me, and that's what changed the way I started approaching things, approaching work, approaching life really at that point.
You also have to start to become comfortable with silence, because in order to listen to the things you say and then process them and then say things back, right? Yeah. I need a pause of like a few seconds or I won't be able to hear what you said.
Right.
And like people get so antsy when they're having conversations with people that the second your mouth stops moving, mine needs to start moving. Right. But it's not true.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is that psychological part to it, right?
Yeah.
It's no matter what the conversation is, it's like, are you done? Okay.
Yeah.
It's that awkward silence, but it is something that learning to grow with, yeah.
So what's your work like at HMB?
Solving, fun and interesting problems for our clients. We primarily are solution focused, project focused. We work with a range of clients from nonprofits, small nonprofits, to some large Fortune 500 and large organizations in the central Ohio region, and then also in Louisville, Kentucky. My focus really a lot is around bringing a modern workplace into the side of the productivity and collaboration. And I know we hear that word a lot now from Microsoft, this modern workplace. But the reality of it is we've been living in a modern digital era since the iPhone and some of that stuff came out. And everybody cannot wait to update their iPhone because they're going to get, the next big feature, the next big thing. And then when we go to the corporate or business side of it, it's no, don't touch it, don't bother it.
Right.
And that starts to hinder and restrict what the new workforce coming up wants to do, right? They want to be able to do that. They don't want to rely on old school software or mentality or processes. Is hey, just let me get my job done. Like that's what you paid me to do. Let me get it done. If I want to use a Mac, but then let's figure out how do we also have that with the tangible of compliance and security and control. Still, it's a fair trade-off.
Right.
And for me, it's empowering businesses. I work more on the business side of things than I do with the IT teams. I would much rather be sitting with HR and CorpCom and even sales teams and claims and automation, that side of it, than sitting and making sure the lights are on and we're using the right version of this, right version of that. To me is, I get it, we have to do it, but I would rather be, hey, what's your problems? What can we do here? Like I use it often too is, imagine this is back in the Pony Express. Yeah. What do you need to do here, right? Imagine it's going to take a couple weeks. Imagine, and let's try to not to think about the way it used to be. What's the problem?
So what kind of practical suggestions do you make to the business people about these sort of things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So usually, like leading on that issue of, or leading on that thought of let's take technology out of it. That's the first thing, because a lot of us, including myself, and I made that comment earlier, is we start to think tech first,
right?
And then the reality of it, we need to start thinking of it as, what are we trying to solve here? And then are there other teams, and are there other areas, or are the water cooler talks that we have, could this benefit somebody else, right? Like let's look at it a bit larger than just the people that are in your department, or what's the full scale process, or the solution there. And another kind of a piece of advice is kind of going back to the community part of it is let's learn to. If we have to, let's learn to fail, or fail fast, fail often. I really believe in that mentality.
We use that phrase a lot.
Yes, fail fast, fail often, and learn to fail. I actually played college baseball, and the one thing that I learned in baseball that changed me was you fail 30% of the time, or all the time. I mean, it's a failure sport, and then there's the strategy of it, and learning and studying that you don't ever feel like you get anything out of it, right? And you guys probably had that problem with some junior developers. They just feel like they're reading and they're this is not applicable to me,
Right.
But you are, and that was the one thing that with baseball that taught me was I learned to fail fast, because
What position did you play?
I was a catcher.
Okay.
So I was a catcher.
Yeah,
And,
I think it's interesting with baseball too, that analogy, because I can't think of any other career in the world where you can succeed about 20 to 30% of the time and make millions.
yeah, or be a Hall of Famer. I
Yeah.
mean, you've got Pete Rose, one of the all-time hit kings, is still not even at the 300-400 batting average that most people would assume that he would be at.
Yeah.
It's amazing to look at it, and I've always had that. That was how I learned to fail.
Plus, pitchers succeed like 60% of the time. So
Yeah, that's true. On the flip side, yeah.
But pitchers aren't athletes. So. No, that's it's kind of a thing baseball. Pitchers are always awesome characters, and they're competitors day in and day out. And you give them the ball, and they're ready to go. And we joke, they're not athletes. Like they're just there if they're throwing the ball.
So I've got to ask, what team do you root for?
I'm a Reds fan. Now I will say I think I am a Reds fan because of
Proximity.
Proximity,
Yeah.
right? I actually a lot of times I don't really have a favorite fan, favorite player, or favorite team, favorite player. I can turn on a game, watch it any day. I think part of it too is I understand the strategy of it. I understand why things happen. Where I see why people say like, "Oh, baseball's boring." Like, why would you want to sit there for 4 hours?
We just had this conversation because we were talking about baseball the other day, and I said, I used to hate it. I used to despise baseball. The game is so slow. It's so boring. And somebody came to me and said, "You're a developer. Stats are what it's all about." And all of a sudden the light went on, and I'm like, oh, this data's interesting.
Yes.
baseball
And I
is
became a fan.
It was far and away my favorite sport, and it always has been since I was a kid. And it was always about like numbers and stuff.
Yeah. So as a catcher, like when, my thing was I wanted to throw like 1.8 seconds, 1.9. We called it pop time. From home to second. And as a pitcher, hopefully they're going to be delivering in their windup in about a second and a half. So if you look at it that way, we're at 3.8, 3.4 seconds. And then you start thinking, can that runner get from first to second and steal on me in 3.2 seconds? And that's when the game really starts to change. And that's when you really start to see it.
Well, some of the new stats that they have on TV are getting unbelievable.
Yeah.
What Major League Baseball is doing.
Yeah.
Like they've got this thing now where a fly ball in the outfield, right? And it's like, but they're gonna go, okay, a normal person could get from where that person's standing to where that ball is in like 3.8 seconds.
Right.
Is he gonna do it?
Right. Yeah, and then you see somebody like a Mike Trout or Billy Hamilton. And you see these guys and like, where did these athletes come from? They're not the traditional means. And I think Moneyball also the movie. So I read the book. I knew Moneyball way before, and then the movie came out. My wife's like, "Want to go read it?" She's like, "Is it really like that?" I was like, "Yeah." It's like it was even at the college level when we were looking at recruits, when we were looking at strategy against other teams. That's the exact mentality we went into.
Yeah.
The flip side of that now in technology is the same way, right? Is we want to make data-driven decisions. We also want to provide data to the businesses to make those decisions.
That's right.
And that was also that translation. You hear that often, like, oh, we'll make data-driven. We're doing everything data-driven. It's like, but what are your data points, right? In baseball, when it was just batting average and it was just your on-base percentage, that was great. But now when you look at all these other stats, now you're really making data-driven.
Like they didn't even know these stats existed because they weren't
Well, you didn't
tracking
have
them.
You didn't have a purpose either.
Yeah.
Right? Like and you start looking at now like conversion rates and even the simplicity of like pay-per-click and advertising, right?
Yeah.
It was just a matter of you clicked on it. Well, what's that cost now, that life cycle of the customer from that first click all the way to the end of the cycle? Where before we were just looking at it as, oh, that cost me 3 cents, so they clicked on my ad.
And I think that's actually one of the, if you want to say, miracles of big data and machine learning is you collect all this information and can start analyzing it and find things you never knew you even cared about that make significant impacts to your view of whether it's a business process or the game of baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's been one thing I tell you is like, you've got this data, at least give somebody a chance. Hire a junior developer, hire an intern, find somebody that you may not want to invest your day-to-day process in, but you also want to at least start looking at it.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever looking at it. They're like, oh, we just got it, it's still in the tapes or it's in backup somewhere. We're not doing anything with it. It's like, why do you have it, right? Not compliance, or they're just afraid to delete it. Quit wasting money if you're not going to use it. I mean, it's that kind of bugs me. And it goes back to now we have the tools. Now we have it, so let's use it.
Absolutely.
thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us. Do you want to have anything you want to promote? Social media, any other
Codepalooza,
conferences?
anything about the dates? Or
Codepalooza, tentatively right now, we are open the call for papers at the end of December. We are going to be at the end of March this year running Codepalooza in comparison to last year. We're trying to get back on that same schedule we used to be, probably right before Derby. It's an exciting time in Louisville at that time. And then dog food again. We'll be here next year. This is we try to keep costs down. We try to keep content great. We're here for the community. None of us make money. None of us are here for this. This is all out of providing back and driving our community for everybody involved. So
Thank you so much for organizing it too.
yeah,
'cause I
it
love
is
this.
a great conference. This is my second year here, and I love it. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.
All right.
Really appreciate
Yep.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Dev Coaches Podcast. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit devcoaches.com and on Twitter @devcoaches. We'll catch you next time.